What have we learned in last Shir, Monday morning? We began the Maamer, Oz Yashir Moshe B'nei Yisrael Sashira Azois Lashem from the Balatanya and Torah Parshas Beshalach. We are up to close to the end of the second paragraph. If you didn't download your source sheets, please do that right now, unless you have a Sefer Torah, top of page 124. So, in very, very brief terms, the Balatanya wanted to know what was the function, what was the purpose of Kriyas Yamsuf. Why was it necessary, especially when Tosfos writes in Erkin Daf Tesvav Amud Beis, that the Jewish people didn't go through from one side to the other side, but rather it was a semicircle. The same side they went into was the same side they came out. And it was not part of their journey from Eretz Mitzrayim to Eretz Canaan. In other words, Kriyas Yamsuf was not a necessity, essentially. Rather, because Hashem wanted Kriyas Yamsuf, therefore He made sure to take them in a direction that would necessitate Kriyas Yamsuf. And even then, they weren't even going through the river. They only went through part of the river, and they came out from the same side that they went in. This means that there's something in Kriyas Yamsuf itself that was essential to mold the Jewish people into a nation. And this is also clear from the fact that Chazal tell us that there's a mitzvah to mention Kriyas Yamsuf every day. In other words, the Torah says you have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. The Tosefta says that includes also Kriyas Yamsuf, which we do in our davening. We speak about Kriyas Yamsuf every day, not only in Psukkah de Zimra, but also after Kriyas Shema, the whole bracha called Ezras, Emes v'Yatzev v'Nachav v'Kaim, goes to Ezras, has a whole section about Kriyas Yamsuf. And today, when you daven, if you did not daven yet, you will be able to focus on it. And that is, from after Kriyas Shema, you'll see the whole section of Ezras is dedicated primarily, or a significant part of it is dedicated to Kriyas Yamsuf. All the way down to Shira Chadasha Shibcha Ge'ulim, till Gal Yisrael, that's all about Kriyas Yamsuf. People don't realize that Kriyas Yamsuf occupies a very significant space in our daily davening and in our consciousness. I guess the two are dependent on each other, or maybe the same. So there's a reason for this. And for this, the Balatanya began to explain the process of davening and the fire that consumes Carbonace. I'm not going to get into the details. Everybody could review it themselves, and the shir is also on the yeshiva.net, so you could watch the replay. And then he discusses the Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara says that whatever is in the sea is in dry land, whatever is in dry land is in sea. Kol ma sheyesh bayabasha yesh bayam. Kol ma sheyesh bayam yesh bayabasha. The difference is what we call Alma Diskasya and Alma Disgalia. Alma Diskasya, the concealed world, is the world of water. And Alma Disgalia, the revealed world, is the world of dry land. And the difference, he said, everything that's here may be here. But in the Yam, in the sea, it's all concealed by the waterbed. And therefore you do not see the individual creatures that exist in the water, because Kamayim Layam Mechasim, they're all eclipsed and submerged under the waterbed. And therefore we cannot see from an outsider's perspective, from the person looking at the water. We don't see what is going on inside. That's number one. Number two, another explanation, he said, is that in the sea, the creatures of the sea, the fish, marine life, need to be submerged, visibly submerged in their source in order to be able to live. And if you extract the fish from the sea and you say, come, let's take a boat ride. Let's take a boat ride and enjoy the view. We know what that means for the fish. It spells the antithesis of life. On dry land, both of these things are different. Number one, we immediately see individuality. There's no one waterbed that covers up all of us. Every creature and every existence is conspicuously distinct and individuated with its own unique shape and properties and chemistry and identity. And in fact, that is the MO of Yabash, of dry land. Together with that, number two, even though we are submerged in oxygen, but we're still visible, every creature is visible separate, and even though we are dependent on the earth for our survival and for our continuous existence, in one way or another, what the trees do for us in terms of converting sun into energy, which we desperately need in order to be able to live. Each one of us needs the soil in one way. Every single living organism needs the soil, needs earth. But we're not submerged in the earth. We're distinct, we're separate. We walk on top of the earth. In fact, you can even get into a skyscraper, go to the 100th floor and be quite separated from the earth. And even in your home, there's the separation between you and the earth. And even when you're walking on the ground, you're wearing shoes or slippers or Crocs to separate you from the earth. And man today can be in an airplane for many, many hours. Man or woman can be in many hours, completely distant from the, not submerged. It's not like the fish who needs to be submerged, invisible in the water. On the contrary, and this is really where the point is dramatically articulated. The Rebbe once said this in a Maamer when he was explaining this, and I mentioned it in last year. What Alter Rebbe is saying here is very is more acute when we realize the contrast. What spells death in one reality spells life in another reality. You take the fish and you say, come out of the water, you'll enjoy the water. That's death. You take the person or the animal and you say, come, I'm going to put you in the earth so you could be really one with the source of life. And that means burial, which is after 120 years, after a person passes away. What spells life in this domain, in this reality, spells death in this reality, Chalila, and conversely. This is a metaphor. Kol ma sheyesh bayabasha yesh bayam. Kol ma sheyesh bayam yesh bayabasha. But you can have everything to say, but in a completely different state of consciousness. Souls of Yam are called souls of Alma Diskasya. And what does it mean to live in that world? To live in that world means to live in a world of complete dvekus, where the very I is submerged in the mucker, in the source of oxygen and life, in the divine source of electricity, the divine source of vitality and animation that vivifies and is the source of all of existence. My I is completely submerged in it. And therefore, when I look at Alma Diskasi, I don't see any creature. All I see is Mayim Layam Mechasim. Now you understand why the Navi says about the future when Mashiach comes. Yeshayahu Perik Yud Aleph, Isaiah 11, which we say Achron Shal Pesach in Torah. You remember? Lo yareyu v'lo yashchisu b'chol harkachi. He speaks there about the animals getting along with each other, undomesticated animals. V'gar ze'ev im keves. The wolf will be able to dwell and live with the lamb. The child will be able to play with the snake. The bear, the leopard, he goes through various wild beasts who will all be at peace. Lo yareyu v'lo yashchisu b'chol harkachi. They will not harm each other. They will not destroy each other. Why? Why? Mala ha'aretz deyes Hashem kamayim layam mechasam. Because the earth will be filled with divine awareness like water covers the sea. What's the connection? Now we understand the connection. Because when Mala ha'aretz deyes Hashem kamayim layam mechasam, when there will be the mayim, we're under the water. What does this mean symbolically? It means I don't see that you are opposite than me, and therefore I need to defeat you in order to win. Alma Diskasya, what we see is cosmic oneness, the organic, innate unity of the entire creation. That's the neshama of Alma Diskasya. It lives in that oneness. The very definition of the I is that there's no I. That is the Metzias. That's what he speaks about, Bittul B'Metzias. As I explained in the previous shir at length, that the Metzias of souls of Alma Diskasya, what is their Metzias? What is their identity? Their identity is that they're one with the source, completely one. And because of that, there's complete unity. Because what we see is the divine energy that unifies all of creation. And therefore, if you take them out of that space, there's no life. That is for them the definition of life. Va'atem hadveikim b'Hashem Elokechem chayim kolchem hayom. The chayim comes from the dveikim, from the oneness, from the absolute oneness, absolute alignment with the source of life. Moshe Rabbeinu, that is who he is. How do we know this? His name. He had other names. The Gemara says in Maseches Sotah and the Medrash says in Vayikra, Moshe had 10 names. The Gemara mentions a few names, the Medrash mentions all of the names. Nobody knows these names. If you learn the Gemara and learn Medrash, you know some of the names. Toiv, nice names, good names. Toiv, pun intended. Toiv, Tuvia, Yekusiel. Geschmacke names his mother gave him, his father gave him. 10 names, you could look it up. None of these names are known. We only know one name, the name that was given to him by the Egyptian princess, Batya, the daughter of Parai. That's the only name that stuck. It's the name that the Rebbeinu Shalom chose. That's the name in Torah for the greatest leader, Moshe Rabbeinu. Kimena mayim mishisu. I plucked him out of the water. And as we explained, the Baal HaTanya says and explains to us and enlightens us what this means. He was taken out of water. He was retrieved from water. But why does that become his name? Why does that become the most important thing to know about his life? Obviously, it was very important. That's what saved his life. But why does that become his name throughout his entire life? A name captures the essence of the person. Because it's not just he was physically retrieved from water. This represents his life. Moshe was essentially a creature from water. Even when he was in dry land, he was in water. When you looked at Moshe, he said, Min hamayim mishisiyu. He comes from water. He is a soul that comes from water, not from dry land. He's a neshama from Yam, not from Yabasha. If you remember, I think it was last year we learned in Torah Shmois that there were few neshamas from the first Shemitah. We come from the second Shemitah. Those souls come from the first Shemitah. Torah Parsha Shmois, Misam Pella Adam. We learned it. It's on the website Geshmak Maamer about Toyo and Tikkun. So therefore, Moshe can't speak. He's kvad per kvad loshen. Because speaking by definition necessitates his galus, revelation, communication. Moshe's natural state is a state of complete silence. Hashem yilachem lachem v'atem tacharishim. And the reason for this we can understand. Because as the Baal HaTanya puts it, Dibur and his galus nimna mimenu, because he is v'nachnu ma bittul b'metzias. When the very eye is submerged in the source of life, Moshe says, I can't really communicate. Communication for Moshe Rabbeinu is antithetical to his very core, to his very essence. Because he's completely submerged in the source. Always receiving, always absorbing that. A complete state of attachment and deeper than attachment, completely submerged in that source. So now to be able to speak, to communicate, you have to have a consolidated identity. This is who I am, and this is what I want to communicate to you. Moshe Rabbeinu transcends that. Alma Dizgalya Neshamas are very different. Alma Dizgalya Neshamas live in a world where every soul is distinct and individuated and in a very revealed way. And you're not submerged in your source of life. At least not visibly. In other words, for you to be authentic, you have to identify yourself as a being. Now, who are we? Are we souls of Alma Dizkasya? Are we souls of Alma Dizgalya? We all begin as souls of Alma Dizkasya. For 9 months, we live in water. We live in a yam. We live in the amniotic sac in the womb of our mothers. All of us. When we go into a mikveh, into the yam, essentially, symbolically, for a few minutes or seconds, we're going back to that fetal state, our state pre-birth. That's one of the reasons we understand from this Maamer the pleasure that people have when they come to beds of water. There's something very delightful that's triggered in the human psyche when you come to the ocean. Or even when you look at a lake, or a pond, or a river, a well, there's something joyous, there's something special that's triggered in the ordinary human being when we come across this. When we come across beds of water, we go into the water, or we even just look at the water. It brings something up. Yes, it brings up alma d'eskasya. It brings up our memories of pre-birth. It brings up our origin submerged in water. And on a spiritual level, it brings up our inner dveikus with infinity, with Ein Sof, where the I does not exist as a separate being. Not because the I doesn't exist, but because the I is completely one and aligned with the divine I. A fish exists, and it exists in a beautiful way. Some of those fish are amazing, but it's completely submerged in the water. Moshe Rabbeinu existed. The Rambam says he was mifchar min enushi. He reached the ultimate perfection a human being can reach. Like kam navi kamash. But the definition of his existence, the definition of his I is what? Complete oneness, complete dveikus inside the water. And all water beds of water, bring us back to that space consciously and even more subconsciously, to our own alma d'eskasya. On the other hand, we emerge from the womb. We're not all of us are called Moshe. Some of us are called Moshes, but not all of us are called Beshalach. Because we emerge from the womb. Moshe remained a creature of water throughout his life. But we emerge, we're born, and we're born into a world of dry land, the Abasha, Alma d'Izgalia. And in that world, my individuated self becomes significant, it becomes important. It's valid. And it's the way I process life. Life has to be channeled and processed in a way that I can feel my existence and I can experience my individuality vis-a-vis you. And that's why we spoke about the two streams in human consciousness, the need for attachment and the need for individuation, which you may call the need for you to be authentic to you. And both are very powerful features in the human brain. There is the need for attachment, connection, very deep connection, in which really I'm part of you and you're part of me. But there's also the need for individuation. And who am I? Mi ani. And these two can be at tension with each other. Evolutionary psychologists will explain it from the perspective of evolution. To really understand the depth of it, it's this Maamer and other Maamerim of the Balatanya. It's the tension of Alma d'Eskasya and Alma d'Izgalia, and the ultimate need for fusion.
You can hear?
You want to ask a question?
It's so interesting because Rabbi was talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, how he couldn't speak. And I was holding this note in front of you telling you to unmute. I wasn't able to speak. I wish I was on the Madriga of Moshe Rabbeinu, though, where I didn't need to speak.
Right. Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to be unmuted.
He didn't want to be yeah, right.
Moshe Rabbeinu did not want to be unmuted.
Right. And I don't want, and I'm a regular yid, so I don't want to be muted.
Some of us don't want to be muted, some of us don't want to be unmuted.
So it's Rabbi speaking about the balance. I'm trying to figure out where the balance is, because we really, really want to be in Alma d'Eskasya in a way, but Hashem put us in Alma.
Very good question. We want to be in Alma d'Eskasya, but Hashem put us in Alma d'Izgalia.
Yeah, so.
And that means to be authentic. That means to be authentic to myself. I have to acknowledge that I'm in Alma d'Izgalia.
Rabbi,
Yes.
Isn't the idea to fluctuate between Alma Discassia
Yeah.
and Alma Discalia? Because ultimately the Atmos is found in both.
Yeah. You're going straight to the point. You're going straight to the point. You're saying that Atzmos transcends both, and therefore we ultimately have to fuse them. Yeah, we're going to get there.
Well, the trick is finding the balance. I was thinking about it. First of all, I thought, okay, 50-50. But then I said no, because we came from Alma Discassia, but we're fully created in Alma Discalia.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more, we should be more in Alma Discalia. But then I was thinking, well, we wanted the Alma Discassia.
Yeah.
So the real goal is to bring that into that.
Yeah.
As much as we can.
Yes.
We can't do it like Moshe Rabbeinu. We have to realize that.
Right. Moshe.
He had a special matana from the Yashir.
For sure.
Which, extra special. So we can try though. We can get pretty heavy into it.
Right. Yeah.
I hope it's okay.
Was this exemplified by Yosef? Learned in the Maamer that certain tzaddikim are like fish that can go very quickly from one place to another.
Yeah, we learned in Lekutei Torah Parsha Shmini the Maamer about Livyasan. Livyasan ze yatzarta l'sachik boy. The difference between Nune Yama, the fish of the sea, and the Sher Habar. That says when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a big meal for the tzaddikim with the Livyasan and the Sher Habar. So the Livyasan, the Leviathan, represents the neshamas of Alma Discassia. And the Sher Habar represents the neshamas of Alma Disgalia, where movement is much slower, and where the whole MO of Avodas Hashem is different. He says the mit'ein shup, right? That the some fish mit'ein shup with one swift motion. They can cover huge distances in the water. Yosef is blessed by his father. V'yidgu l'roiv hamalach hagoy eloisi mikol hanarim. Hamalach hagoy eloisi hu yivarech es hanarim v'yikarim shri v'shem havesav v'yidgu l'roiv b'kerev haaretz. V'yidgu. Yidgu means dugim, fish. So literally it says they should proliferate, they should increase amidst the earth. But v'yidgu is dugim. Rashi says ayin hara shouldn't be shaylet. Fish always sleep with open eyes. Ein pkicha, they don't close their eyes, obviously. V'yidgu l'roiv. But one of the taichin is v'yidgu l'roiv b'kerev haaretz. That in Eretz, which is Alma Disgalia, you should be able to have the connection of v'yidgu, which is Alma Discassia. That's the bracha of Yaakov to Yosef, who was living in Egypt, who raised Ephraim and Menashe in Egypt without the Zaydah and without the environment that they had back in Eretz Yisrael. Yosef was the prime minister of Egypt. V'yidgu l'roiv b'kerev haaretz in Alma Disgalia. You should still be able to have v'yidgu, the consciousness of the fish. Yes, very powerful. And if you look at Reb Shalom, he gave us a background of an ocean, so we can all jump right into Alma Discassia. Right into Alma Discassia. Yeah. Ein Baruch Shama, yeah. Kann man sich hereinchappen in Alma Discassia.
What was that? Did Shalom say?
I was saying that Reb Shalom's background is the ocean. That's this morning's background. Because he doesn't just want me to preach. He wants it to be a visualization. We should actually see the real mikveh. And if you're in the mood, you could jump into it. Shalom, it's real, I hope. Yeah, we can come visit you.
It's real.
Gewaldig. Beautiful. Okay, there's something about water. There's no question. It triggers these inner sentiments, inner emotions in a person. So now, we could now come to begin appreciating the power of Kriyas Yamsuf. Now we can understand what is Kriyas Yamsuf. Kriyas Yamsuf is not just the water split, the water broke, so that the Jews could walk through and the Egyptians ultimately drowned. Of course, that was Kriyas Yamsuf. But Kriyas Yamsuf represented something, and it represents something, and that's why we mention Kriyas Yamsuf every day. What is Kriyas Yamsuf? It's the opening of Alma Diskasya. It's the fact that the water splits and everything that was under the water is now revealed, is now displayed. And you could walk through that space like you walk through dry land. What does this mean in a person's life? Imagine that all my pnimius, everything that's inside, that's buried deep within, it's covered by water, is opened up. And I can actually walk through it. I can walk through it with the same comfort and ease with which I walk through dry land. Usually, that world is, no trespass. The big sign, no trespassing. Nobody is going through that world. It's blocked. We can't live underwater. We could go there for some periods of time. I mean, the submarines have allowed people to be there for significant amounts of time, but it's not our natural habitat, obviously. Spiritually as well. There's a part, you could call it the unconscious, the superconscious, the subconscious, that which is beneath the water, which we don't have access to. Kriyas Yamsuf means I can go in there, I don't have to be afraid. God says the water will split and you could walk in there. On a deeper level, what is this? This is what the Maamer says. It's really the fusion of Alma Diskasya and Alma Disgalia. It's the ability to be able to go in to my Alma Diskasya. Even though I'm a dry land creature, I don't have a connection there. Kriyas Yamsuf was that moment of clarity when everyone got to be able to walk through their own Yamsuf as though it was dry land, which meant, in a very practical way, that you become in touch with your deepest source of life, with your deepest connection and attachment and alignment and oneness with the Ein Sof. But you do this walking into dry land. They didn't just jump into the water and jump right out of it. That became Yabasha. For those few moments, or those few minutes, as long as the miracle occurred, or those few hours, the Yamsuf became Yabasha. In other words, that which is usually the state of Alma Diskasya, it became their Alma Disgalia. That became their consciousness. That became something that is their reality. Why do we mention this every day? Why was this so important to experience after Yetzias Mitzrayim? Because essentially this is the avodah that every single person wants to be able to discover within themselves on a daily basis. Because we each have this tension, we each have this duality, and we have it in our day-to-day lives, in our own relationships. And the best example for this would be marriage, but really almost every relationship, where there's two various things going on simultaneously. On one level, I'm looking for attachment. We need attachment. Loi toiv, what is the first thing the Torah says is not good? You remember? The first thing, Loi toiv heyos ha'adam levada. Not good for man to be alone. You can't be alone. Loneliness is a tragedy. People need to feel that they matter to somebody else. You care for me. I'm one with you and you're one with me. We're connected. Today in addiction research we know, listen to this, that the antithesis, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. You know that. The opposite of addiction is not sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Connection. And that's why your grandmother, when she broke her hip, went to the hospital for 3 weeks, and they gave her large dosages of morphine. And they gave her a lot of drugs, which essentially were like heroin. And she didn't come out addicted. She should have been addicted. Your grandmother, who was 84 years old, should have come home a complete heroin addict. It never happened. You know why? Because she has around 70 grandchildren jumping on her bed. She never feels disconnected. What causes addiction is not that I use it again and again. Of course, that's the practical element of it. But the real cause of it is I'm not connected. I'm alone in the world. I'm lonely. And that creates a lot of pain. Loi toiv yoisa adam levada. And you want to see how meticulous this is. Anybody knows what's the second loi toiv in Chumash? The second loi toiv in Chumash? The same exact words are used by Yisroi to Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshas Yisroi when he says, Loi toiv hadavar asha ta'oisa, madua atoyoshev levadecha. Moshe, you're alone. It's not good. Novel tibul, you're going to wither away. Now the loi toiv of Bereshis, the loi toiv of Yisroi are different loi toivs. But Yisroi was saying, you're an Alma Discasia, they're an Alma Disgalia. We have to find an intermediary here. So back to our point. So connection is essential. Attachment. Today in psychology, there's something very well known as attachment disorder. Attachment disorder means there was a disorder in my attachment. I did not feel attached as a child. I did not feel that safety, that security. I didn't feel like my home or my mother or my father or my environment or my school or my community was a nest in which I can really feel safe and secure, in which I can be seen and soothed. There's a therapist who used the 4 S's, right? Safe, secure, seen, and soothed. The 4 S's. I have to be able to be seen, I have to be able to be soothed, I have to be able to feel safety, and I have to be able to feel security. In a word, I have to be able to feel attached. I have to feel that my I is part of something larger, something greater. I'm not just an isolated, individuated creature trying to function and live on my own. I matter to you, you matter to me. On the other hand, if your spouse tells you, listen, from today, you are part of me, but there's nothing else. We revolt. No, I need to be me. half of the marriage therapists will tell you that a significant amount of their therapy work is this. I want to be me. I want to have my own life. I have an identity. I have talents. I have resources. I have a future. I have my dreams. So many divorces happen. Why? Because I didn't feel that, my dreams could be implemented with you in my life. On the contrary, you're a very nice person, but it was not for my dreams. This is, I want to be me. I want to be true to me. I'm an individual. I have my personality. I don't want to be swallowed up by you. I don't want to be submerged in you. I don't want to be in the sea. I want to be noticeable. I want to make my mark. Very opposite need. So some people will say this is true. Some people will say that's true. They're both true. They're both true. I need to be you, and I need to be me. I need to be part of you. Loi toive yois adam levada. Al kein yazav ishes aviv es imoi v'davak be'ishtoi v'hoyu lebaser echad. Attachment begins with tati and mami. It continues in marriage because there's no attachment like the attachment to marriage. Just like there's no attachment like the attachment to tati and mami. And what happens if there was an attachment disorder with tati and mami? There's going to be an attachment disorder with your husband or your wife. And a lot of your inner work is going to happen over there. That's why we love blaming our mothers and our fathers, don't we? And they could blame their fathers and mothers, and they could go back to Adam and Chava, and who are they going to blame? They'll blame the snake. It's all the snake's fault. Trauma, 5,801 years, intergenerational trauma from the Nachash HaKadmaini. But Nachash is Begematria Mashiach. Why? Because there comes a point where you have to be able to release all the trauma and create healing. So the attachment of Aviv and Ima is v'davak be'ishtoi v'hoyu lebaser echad. You become one flesh. You become completely one with the other person. That's how the Torah describes the human condition. This is how reality works. So you say, I don't need dveikus. I just need to be myself. No, lo tova yos adam levada. I may be in pain, and I may be lonely, and I may be angry, and I may have been hurt, and I may be disappointed, so therefore I run away into myself. It's like that child, 3 years old, who doesn't get what he wants, and he runs upstairs to cry, and he says, leave me alone, I don't want to see you, but really he wants your connection more than anything else. And if you leave the house and you say, okay, we'll give you up for adoption, it's the most destructive thing you can do for this child. He's screaming, I want to be alone, but really, I want to be alone because I'm feeling hurt by this connection. I'm feeling not safe. I'm feeling not secure. Can you prove to me that you're here for me? This is the real need. This is the real yearning, the real search. And as a result of that, dveikus is the real yearning of a person. I need to feel that I matter to you. And in a marriage, this is so, so important. The person has to know that you matter to me. I'm here for you. I'm thinking about you. There's space for you in my life, real space for you in my life. And then I want to be me. So you see, this is a manifestation in a very practical way of these two modes, Alma Diskas, Alma Disgalia. And the two can't live without each other. The two are dependent on each other. Why are they dependent on each other? Because if a person is not really connected, they can't be themselves. And if you don't allow me to be me, I can't really be connected. Listen to what I'm telling you. If I'm not connected, I can't be me. Because I'm wounded. There's like a bottomless pit. There's an inner void. An inner hole that I can't fill, an inner void that I can't fill. I have to numb. I have to feel the achdus. And if not, I can't really be myself. There's too much anxiety there. On the other hand, if I'm not allowed to be me, I also can't be connected because I feel that the connection is abusive and overwhelming and will destroy me. Thank you. Vayhi, my wife decided to put on the lights. Ich hab lieb de chayshach, aber sie hat lieb de oir. Yashir's chayshach sisra.
She must be listening to the shir because she thought to do a tova for you.
Yeah.
Well, nice wife.
So your typhus here. So if I'm attached, I could be individual. I could be individuated. And in order to be able to be individuated, I have to be attached. But in order to be able to be attached, I also have to have that sense of individuation. Because if not, people say, people say, you're choking me, you're swallowing me up, you're not letting me breathe. And the two, therefore, are dependent on each other. And when we learn how to process it in our own lives, and of course we have to have the cooperation of the other, what happens is they actually begin helping out each other. They intensify each other. Because they're really connected to each other. They're dependent on each other. And we had the other day a marriage seminar with couples last Sunday, a full day seminar. So I spoke and Rabbi Moshe Zev Lam spoke. And he said a very beautiful point. He said that nowhere like in a marriage will your authenticity be challenged and your attachment will be challenged. In other words, marriage is an institution where these two worlds, Alma Disgasya and Alma Disgalia, will be the most tested. In other words, there's also the opportunity for them to be the most crystallized and articulated in that relationship. Because it's such an intense and powerful relationship. The attachment is very, very deep, even though you're attached to your siblings and you're attached to your friends. But it's a different type of attachment. Here the attachment is constant and perpetual. You're living together. So the attachment really has to be worked out. and the authenticity really has to be worked out. And both will be tested in a very powerful way. And this is what, on one level, this is the beginning of understanding, at least on one level, the concept of Kriyas Yamsuf. Kriyas Yamsuf is, can I really be able to look in and reveal my inner space, my Yamsuf, my Alma de Iskasya? What's my Alma de Iskasya? Alma de Iskasya is the place where my eye wants to cease to exist separately and become submerged in the Ein Sof, in the other. In the Maamer, the other is infinity, which is me also, because I'm also part of Ein Sof. But it's reflected in our relationships with other people, like we say that the mashal of a man and a woman, marriage is a mashal for Hashem and the Jewish people. It's all the same concept, because every relationship in our world is a microcosm of the ultimate relationship. That's what the Baal Shem Tov taught, that every relationship that we have here is really a way of God seeking a relationship with us. That's what the Baal Shem Tov says. All relationships here are a way of mending our relationship with Hashem. It's an extraordinary teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. And that's why each of our relationships is just a reflection of this concept.
Jacobson,
Yeah.
you say if a person is, if you cannot be yourself, you cannot be connected. I relate to that. If you're damaged, if a person's not connected.
Now look at Reb Daniel's background. He doesn't only have a yam. Shalom has a yam. Reb Daniel has Kriyas Yamsuf in his background. I'm a chaya. I think I could walk through it, yeah? You're saying if a person is wounded, I'm sorry, repeat your question again.
If a person's not connected to another, they can't be themselves.
Yeah.
They can't be themselves. Can you explain that side? I missed that.
Yeah. You said, the question Reb Daniel is asking, as I understand, when you say that if you're not feeling true to yourself, it's very hard to be connected, because I feel that connection chokes me and obliterates me and nullifies me, and I run away from it. On the other, it's like it's too overwhelming. It's too inauthentic. I'm being inauthentic, but what does it work also the other way? Of course, it works also the other way, because what often happens is, if attachment is part of my identity and I don't have it, so then my identity is so wounded and scarred that I can't really live up to my dreams, to my potentials. I can't be me. Or to put it differently, most of my time and mental space will be dedicated to numb the pain due to the attachment disorder. Much of my mental space will be designated to try to fill the void and distract me from the fact that I feel disconnected. To give a practical example for this, Amen.
I was always wondering, Rabbi, when I listen to your shiurim on playback, can I say Amen to your brothers?
A practical...
As long as you don't say a woman.
A practical example for this is somebody told me once that they work very hard in their business. Very, very hard. And they put in so much work day and night and over hours. Very talented fellow, really talented fellow, intelligent, smart, educated person. And we were having once a very open conversation. He was a friend of mine. And I asked him, why do you work so hard? You work so hard. Is this your passion? And the words I heard were so powerful. And I'm saying them almost verbatim, not verbatim, but almost verbatim. He said, I grew up and nobody ever appreciated who I was. I felt like a nebach. I felt insignificant and valueless and really dispensable. I'm just not needed. And he says, all my work in that office and that company is, I decided I am going to force them to believe that I'm needed. I am going to show them and to prove them that I am needed in this world. They're going to see how much they're dependent on me. Now, you hear what he's saying? All of his work has nothing to do with himself. None of it. It has nothing to do with dreams, goals, passions, talents, resources. It's basically trying to numb the pain and fill the void of an attachment disorder. I never felt valued. Nobody ever saw me. I was never attached to anything and anybody. And therefore, I am going to force this attachment. I am going to force my validation. I'm going to force myself to be validated. And that's why the two are so deeply and constantly and intricately interconnected. What we have in this Maamer is the powerful idea. This is not just an evolutionary random mutation. You got to be connected because we hunt in packs. As foragers, we had to hunt in packs so we could survive. So we had to work together. And on the other hand, for the hunting to be successful, there had to be on hierarchies. Everybody had to also be in their position. So that's a very depressing, depiction of mankind, to the point that it's just, we're all busy responding to the various mutations because we wanted to survive. What this Maamer is teaching us is that Alma Diskas and Alma Disgalia are two inherent components of existence. Okay, so now, this was supposed to be my summation. Yeah.
This balance that you're speaking about between individuation and connection.
Yeah.
This is in Alma Disgalia. It's not. I don't really hear like the whole connection with Hashem is like a separate thing.
No, I'm explaining how these two modes of reality that the Baal HaTanya is introducing to us is manifested on every level of the human condition, where each of us has these two needs. Where does it come from? It comes from the source, like everything. That in the human soul, there's two aspects. Alma Diskasya is the fact that there's a state of consciousness where my I is completely submerged and is one with the source and doesn't want to be visible. It wants to melt away in the all-pervasive oneness of my Creator. And Alma Disgalia is where God, so to speak, sends my soul out of the water into dry land where it becomes individuated. Moshe Rabbeinu remains Alma Disgalia. That's why naturally he doesn't want to speak. Hashem has to really push him and say, no, I'll help you speak. Because by nature, by the innate condition of Moshe Rabbeinu, he is subsumed in the infinite light. And therefore, there's no communication, there's no hisgalus, which is basically a compromise of the energy. It's diluting the energy to the point where I'm communicating it to you. Moshe Rabbeinu is in a state of his very mitzias is bittul. So therefore, naturally, he's kvad peh.
So if a husband and wife have a big project, they're making a new kitchen, and they've got to figure out all these details. There's a whole cliche about the husband and wife tearing each other's hair out about all the details. So how do they bring in this to make that more peaceful and efficient?
So you're asking, a husband and a wife are having a huge debate about renovating the kitchen. And he has his perspective, she has her perspective. How can this Maamer help such a couple make more peace? So now we want a therapy session? Is that what we want right now? We got to bring in the wife here and discuss the kitchen. We have to hear what she says about the kitchen. She says, if I'm not mistaken, she just wants a new house. She says, forget the kitchen. Let's just buy a $2 million new house. In Miami, maybe, right? And we'll be good. I'm just joking. I think that I'm not joking. Maybe she does want that, but I don't know who the wife is. So, I think.
Mama feels like the ikr because Shlemus and Kedusha is going to bring Mashiach. So I feel like for my
Of course. It's very important. When there's peace at home, there could be peace in the world. Yeah. The Lubavitcher Rebbe once said it of Fabrengen Acheron Shel Pesach Tovshin Chafal of 1961, I think. The Haftarah says, I mentioned when Mashiach comes, the wolf will lie with the lamb. They're going to be at peace. The Rebbe said, you know why they're going to be at peace? You know why the wolf and the lamb will be at peace? Because the wolf and the lamb inside of me is going to be at peace. The Nefesh Elikis and the Nefesh Bahamas. There's going to be peace between the animals inside of me and between the godly soul and the animal soul. Between the domesticated soul and the undomesticated soul. Because there's going to be peace inside each and every one of us. So by osmosis, what happens inside of us, the world exists inside of us, affects the universe, and it affects the planet. And therefore, the peace internally is going to be manifested in peace externally. Not only among humans, but even in the animal kingdom, among all of the mammals. So when we create peaceful marriages at home, and when we create peace between ourselves, it's not just you're giving yourself a better life. That's true. But you're also exuding a light into the world that other people benefit from. It creates more peacefulness in the world. Besides in your home, besides in your family, besides in your community. It's extremely important. This is a time, I think this is part of the quarantine divine message. Time to work on your marriage. Now sometimes one of the parties is not interested in any of this. They don't want to cooperate. Maybe they're too hurt. Maybe they're too angry. Maybe they're too lonely. Maybe they've felt too, nobody listened to them. Whatever the situation is, but we have to try to do whatever we can to the point of very deep commitment in order to be able to restore our relationships. I want to tell you, it was a very gratifying moment for me. Many, many years ago, this is maybe, 20 years ago, a little less, there was a couple that came to me. They had terrible, terrible marital strife. Every day there was a new explosion in the house. And their kids were suffering. They were little kids. They wanted to get divorced constantly, again and again and again. It was today we're getting divorced. Tomorrow we're getting divorced. Both wonderful people. I really liked them. Very special people. But there was something inside there that was very, very decadent. It was just not working. And the families were not helpful either. Sometimes the families are helpful, sometimes they're not helpful. And I tried to work with them, and I tried to help them. And then, I moved on in my life, they moved on in my life, and I didn't really have contact with them. And just a week or two ago, I got a message from the husband about something else. He asked me a question. And I said, hey, whatever happened to you? Your marriage, your children. And he sent me pictures of his children. He has had more children since, and they're grown-ups already. And he has a good marriage and a very happy life and a very fulfilled life and a successful life, Baruch Hashem. Everyone has challenges, but thank God he's doing well in many ways and has a beautiful family. And he thanked me. He thanked me for the effort I put in then. And then he told me something. He said that you told me then, that for a marriage, it's worth fighting for to the point of Mesiras Nefesh. And I followed through because so many instincts in me were running away from it, but I followed through, and it was the best thing I did in my life. Now here we have to qualify. Mesiras Nefesh doesn't mean you have to fight for a marriage if you're being horribly abused. If a woman is being beaten, or kids are being beaten, or people's lives are in danger, then you have to leave a marriage, or at least you have to consider it very significantly. What Mesiras Nefesh I meant was your own Mesiras Nefesh. Sometimes my pain, my trauma, my ego, my insecurity tells me, no, just run away. Mesiras Nefesh means you really have to be able to challenge every fiber in your being, and it's worth it. It's worth it. Because it's not only that you'll stay married, it's that you will find who you really are. You will become the best person you're capable of becoming. To put it in the words of this Maamer, I'm going to go back. It's very easy to escape to Alma de Isgalia and make believe you're not connected. But that's not the truth. If you'll do Kriyas Yamsuf, you'll see what's happening in your Alma de Iskasya. You'll see that your eye is so connected and needs that connection and needs that dvekus. The same is true with God. It's very easy to run away and make believe I don't care, I'm apathetic, I'm indifferent, I'm not the religious type, I'm not the spiritual type, I'm just a baltaiva, I'm just a glutton, I want to make money and I want to have a private yacht and a private plane and a big home and smoke Cuban cigars and go out with friends and eat good food and drink delicious wines and play poker, as somebody told me the other day about his agendas in life. But if you'll have a little Kriyas Yamsuf, if you'll open up yourself to your truth, and sometimes it happens through pain. Sometimes when a person experiences pain in their life, they get opened, their hearts get open, and suddenly they see what matters. They see that these attachments that they dismissed as irrelevant are really very, very meaningful. So Kriyas Yamsuf is so important to be able to have the courage to walk through the subterranean corridors of my soul.
Subterranean corridors of our soul.
I want to learn a few lines here before we finish. I want to learn a few lines here. It's the top of 124, right? And we're almost finished the paragraph. The line starts, K'moshe Kosav, K'moshe Amar v'nachnu ma. V'zeu inyan habracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokei Yisrael min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam. And now we're going to understand the blessing. We say in Tehillim, Baruch atah Hashem Elokei Yisrael min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam. I think Kapitel Mem Aleph. From the world till the world. What does this mean? From Alma de Iskasya to Alma de Isgalia. You hear? There's Baruch atah Hashem Elokei Yisrael min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam. What's min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam? Baruch means to reveal, to access. You remember? Hamavrich is to bend. Hamavrich is a gefen to bend the vine. Baruch is to access, to reveal. What's Baruch atah Hashem Elokei Yisrael min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam? That Ein Sof shouldn't only remain in Alma de Iskasya, but sheyi b'chinas Alma de Iskasya b'chinas Sof Kalam, and b'chinas Bittel. The kula kamei kalei chashiv nimshach b'gilui gam ba'alma de Isgalia v'ro kol basar. That the state of Alma de Iskasya, which is also known in chassidus as Sof Kalam. Sof Kalam means that state in which the infinite divine energy is present, and all of reality is not perceived as separate, but completely submerged in oneness. This is called bittul. It's also kula kamei kalei chashiv, everything in his presence doesn't have a separate significance because it's all part of oneness. This is a state of kula kamei kalei chashiv. This is a state of Alma de Iskasya. This is a state of bittul b'metzias. This is a state of Sof Kalam. The Alter Rebbe here gave different names to this state of consciousness. Alma de Iskasya, Sof Kalalman, Bittul, Kula Kamei Kalei Chashiv. Why is that so significant? So this is my request to all the students. These terms we come across constantly. Sof Kalalman, Bittul, Kula Kamei Kalei Chashiv, Alma de Iskasya. But here he's putting them together because he wants you should understand what these terms mean. These terms is basically the consciousness of Moshe Rabbeinu 24 hours a day, where the I is seen as an aspect of infinity, which means there's no I, because my I is just a channel for infinity. The only I that it exists is the Einoid Mulvadoi, that Kula Kamei Kalei Chashiv. That's Alma de Iskasya. But that's a world of oneness. What's a bracha? Baruch atah min ha'olam v'ad ha'olam. That this reality should come out, should be manifested in Alma de Isgalia, B'galui, V'ro kol basar. It's a quote from Yashir, the same chapter, chapter 11, V'nigla kvoid Hashem, V'ro kol basar yachtav kefi Hashem diber. the glory of God will be revealed, the times of Mashiach, and all the flesh will see. V'ro kol basar. That the mouth of Hashem speaks. What does this mean? V'ro kol basar. The term is basar. Basar is not dogim. Fish is not meat. Fish is not fleishiks. Basar are mammals that live on earth. They don't live in the water. V'ro kol basar. The flesh of Alma Dizgalia, those who live on earth, the mammals that live on dry land, will be able to see Kvod Hashem. In other words, Kriyas Yamsuf. In other words, V'nigla Kvod Hashem. That the Ein Sof, Sof of Kalalman, should be revealed and manifested in the world of individuation of Alma Dizgalia. In other words, the fusion of the two realities. That even as I experience myself as me, and l'cha'ira as a separate being, my own identity, my own existence, I should appreciate the truth that what? That's also part of Saivav Kalalman. That's also part of Kula Kamei Kaloi Chashav. In other words, in Alma Diskasi itself, there's no I. The idea of a brach is Baruch Atah, that you should become Atah, mina oilam v'ada oilam, that Alma Diskasya should become a reality in Alma Dizgalia. Even when I walk in dry land, I should be walking amidst the sea. You know the beautiful voice of the Rebbe Reb Melech, Noyam Elimelech.
Yeah,
You know that word?
yeah, I know that one.
Ah, Moiredik. Reb Shalom, you know the word of the Noyam Elimelech?
But I forget.
I'll tell it to you. He says like this.
I love it when people say, "Oh, you heard the story from the Baal Shem Tov?" And people say, "Yeah, I don't even know what the story is going to be."
But this word you'll hear and you'll remember it. He says as follows. It says in Kriyas Yamsov, it says when the story is told, the Torah says Vayavoyu bnei Yisrael b'soich hayam bayabasha. The Jewish people came into the Yam, but they came into dry land because they went into the sea, but the sea became dry. At the end of the story, at the end of the Shira, when the Jews sing the song, they finish off, you remember? Hashem yimlech la'olam va'ed, kivas sus paroi berichba v'farashav bayam, vayashav Hashem aleim esmei hayam, uvnei Yisrael holchu, bayabosha b'toich hayam. The Jewish people went in dry land in the sea. Asks the Elikenoyam Elimelech, why? In the story of Kriyas Yamsov, it says they went in Vayavoyu b'nei Yisrael b'toich hayam bayabosha. At the end, it says Bnei Yisrael holchu bayabosha b'toich hayam. In the beginning, it says they went into the sea and it's to dry land. At the end, it's they went into dry land in the sea. Good question, no? The Pshalom, that's good shaila. So the Noam Elimelech brings, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a piece of his son. Maybe not from the Rebbe Reb Melech himself, could be from his son Rebbe Eliezer. I have to look it up. And he says the tachlis of Kriyas Yamsuf was, the purpose of Kriyas Yamsuf was that when you walk on dry land, you should also experience the consciousness of Kriyas Yamsuf. The point of Kriyas Yamsuf was to show that even when you're walking on dry land, it's the same miracle. Like we say Shabbos, L'roika ha'aretz al hamayim ki li'olam chazdai. The fact that there's earth that was spread over the water is also a miracle. So the first time is Vayavayu b'nei Yisrael b'soich hayam bayabasha. They went into the Yam and it became dry land. The purpose was Uvnei Yisrael holchu bayabasha b'toich hayam, that even when you're walking on Yabasha, it should be b'toich hayam. That's the tachlis. The end of the shira is, you know what the Jews learned from Kriyas Yamsuf? That even when you're walking on Yabasha, it's b'toich hayam. The same ness, the same enthusiasm, the same miracle. When you're walking by Yabasha, it's not b'toich hayam. My brother, Reb Simon, told me he had a Yid who came to learn by him. His name was Peter. His name is Peter. Some of you know him. Pesach Mordechai Himmelman, very special Jew. Great musician, a great singer. And he came from a very, very secular background. And he was entrenched in secular culture. So he came to learn with my brother. And so he wanted to trigger him, you know? So at the end of the class, he turns to my brother and he said, so there was a picture of the Rebbe on the wall in his home, in my brother's home. So he says, who's that? So he says, it's my teacher, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. This is probably 81, 82, 83 maybe. So he says, you're a chassid, you're from the chassidim. He says, I'm a chassid. So he says, so you probably believe that he can fly, right? You probably believe that this rabbi can fly. He was being cynical. So my brother looked at him and said, I don't know if he can fly. I don't know. But I'll tell you what I do know. That when he walks on the ground, he experiences it as a miracle, just as if he would be flying. For him just to take a stroll on God's earth is perceived as miraculous as flying. Verstehst? I heard this years later from Peter, and he told me that impacted him so profoundly. That's pshat. Alma discussin, alma disgalia. They jumped into the yam. Wow. By Abosha. The tachlis was Uvnei Yisrael halchu by Abosha b'teichayam. The tachlis was that afterwards, when you walk in Yabosha, it should also be b'teichayam. Even when you're walking on dry land, you wake up in the morning and you take 2 steps on the ground. And you say, Matir Asurim, Zoikev Kfufim, Roik Aretz Alamayim, Hamechin Mitzadei Gover. It's the miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf. In other words, in my daily consciousness, in my Alma Disgalia, in my perceived individuation, I should be able to always align myself with the truth of Kula Kamei Keloi Chashiv. That's Baruch Atah Hashem Elokei Yisrael Min Ha'olam Ve'ad Ha'olam Alma Disgalia, Alma Disgalia. Okay, Chevra, tomorrow morning we'll have a Shir, Be'ezer Hashem, 7:30. Tomorrow morning, Friday morning. So I'll see you back then, and we'll continue the Maamer. In the meantime, I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful day. Let's see what's happening in the questions department. The Bezriel, Tafasta? Tafasta? Ta kol kach shaket, kulam medabrim chutz mimcha. Gam Reb Meir ma'ad shaket. Okay, let's see the matzav here with the questions. A lot of nice comments. Aren't we supposed to strive towards bittul, not diversity? Why then do you say that Alma Disgalia should stay in diversity? In other words, are we supposed to make peace with our diversity and self-centered needs, or strive towards a place of unity? Gewaldige question. And the answer is, it's not making room for our self-centered needs. It's striving towards a place of unity and realizing that our diversity is also part of our unity. That's what you have to understand. And then your diversity is not self-centered. Right? You could look at diversity and say we're self-centered. I'm not an individual. I'm just part of a whole and there's no me. In other words, I can deny Alma Disgalia, but the real kavana is, that's what he's saying here, to be mamshech Alma Disgalia in Alma Disgalia. If you'll continue learning with us, maybe you have been learning with us for a while, you'll see these concepts will become clearer. The individual fish are invisible to us and not differentiated. But to each of the fish, they see the other individual differentiated fish and other creatures of the sea. In fact, they spot their prey and eat each other. Dito for angels and other creatures of all hidden worlds. Right, the mashal of the yam is from our perspective. You speak about the unity of Alma Discassia, but there are fish that eat each other. That's true. Again, the mashal of the yam is not a perfect mashal from Molar Zeis Hashem K'mayim Le'yam Achasim, but it's a metaphor in the sense that from our perspective we see the oneness. In the physical world, until Mashiach comes, we don't have that physical metaphor of an oasis where there's complete oneness. As far as we know, fish don't make sounds and they don't speak either. Maybe that's why Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't speak, because he was like a fish. Very interesting. Fish didn't sin. They weren't destroyed in the Mabul. Other animals did sin and they were destroyed. That's maybe why we eat fish on Shabbos. Shabbos is Alma Discassia, so that's why Shabbos you eat fish. They now have discovered that some animals have contracted corona. So far as we know, no fish have contracted corona. They exist in a different world, in a different existence. This works with everything you explained. Hashem could have fashioned the miracle anyway. He could have had the Jews walk or swim through the actual water like a fish. He didn't. He wanted them to walk on dry land in the midst of the sea with walls of water on either side. I guess there's a significance to this. We didn't actually go through the wet water. We walked through dry land in the midst of the water. The water pulled back. In other words, the water was transformed into dry land, which means Alma Discassia was transformed into Alma Disgalia. And that's the point of this Maamer. Very well said. You say that if I'm not connected and attached, I can't really be me, because I'm only a half neshama. So if I make believe I'm not attached, I'm not really true to myself. Is that the idea of machzas ha-shekel? Yes, that's the idea of machzas ha-shekel. Machzas ha-shekel means, right, that we are really one, and therefore, if I give a whole shekel, meaning I make believe that I'm not attached, I'm actually not giving a whole shekel. I'm giving a half a shekel because I'm separated from you. But if I give a half a shekel, that means you're giving the other half shekel. In other words, I recognize that I'm attached. Then I'm giving a whole shekel because my eye is part of you. And together we're giving a whole shekel. This I heard from the Rebbe in his last Fabrengen, Shabbos Vayakel Tovshin Nun Beis. Very geschmackavart. The Herst, the Rebbe asked, why do you give a half a shekel? All Carbonace should be whole, not half. The answer is, he said, because I am a half of you and you're a half of me. So when I give a half and you give a half, we're giving together one shekel because I am you and you are me. But if I give a whole shekel, which means I make believe I'm not attached, then actually I am separated, I'm fragmented from myself. I'm not giving a whole shekel. I'm only giving a half shekel because part of me is not involved. Part of me is not giving the shekel. So that's why we give a half, because together, you and I, we give one. Now, so this person says like this. On the other hand, you say to be connected and attached, you have to be completely yourself. To be completely yourself, you have to be connected. Only when both halves are half together, they can create the completion. All of creation seems to be unified, then split and differentiated, and the job is to reunify and reattach those separate parts. Same is about all the sparks. Hashem took the unified puzzle of his world, broke up the pieces, and left it to us to put it back together. And therefore, if I'm not connected and attached, I can't truly be me because I'm only a half neshama. But to be connected and attached, I must first truly and completely be my half. When both halves are first their true and complete half, can they together recreate the completion whole the way they were before they were split, just like the sea. That's why Adam and Chava were one. Very, very well said. Bittul can be pronounced several ways. Someone pointed out to Rabbi Shei's tab that one pronunciation can be a tool, be tool, be a tool, be a tool in Hashem's hands, like Avram being a chariot. Bitul is be a tool. I like that. I like that. Be a tool. Kegarzen b'yad ha'chaytzev. Let God flow through you. It's like the Maggid taught about a shofar, you know. The Maggid says that we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah because Hashem blows the soul of life into Adam, and he blows the soul of life into the whole world. And we have to realize I'm like the shofar, I'm the conduit, the tool, through which Hashem blows all of his energy in. You just be the shofar. Harem ka shofar kailecha.
The word teal in Eretz Yisrael means a missile.
A til in Hebrew is a missile, right?
So bittul can also be a missile for the Eibishter.
So you're saying bitul is be a til. Sometimes you have to be a missile.
And til is very close to tehillim.
Yeah. The word batal literally is the idea of we have in halacha bittul b'shishim, etc. Nullified, right? Nullified. Okay. I know it's hard to say goodbye. Okay, somebody asks a question. The hidden world of the sea was revealed by Kriyas Yamsuf. The hidden supernal worlds were revealed as Hashem gave the 10 commandments. Yeah. Okay, tomorrow morning, Be'ezer Hashem will have the class 7:30 a.m. Today, 3:30 p.m. we have a special shir with the London community, the community in London. The topic is Fear and Faith in Times of Crisis, Lessons of Tu B'Shvat. Everybody's invited. 3:30 p.m. right here on theyeshiva.net. It will stream live, Be'ezer Hashem. It will also be on Torah Anytime and probably on the Zoom, but not this Zoom. They'll have a Zoom. And this is in New York time. It's 3:30 p.m. Everybody is invited this afternoon. And tomorrow morning, we'll have 7:30, continue the Maamer. I wish you all a happy Tu B'Shvat. Remember those fruits and a beautiful day. And welcome, special welcome to Woodridge. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Do you have to run?
Yeah. Alts Beseder?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. Couple things. I had a couple questions. You have time?
I just have to go now. I have to...
Oh, you have to? Okay, good. Have a good
Yeah.
time.
Reb Pinchas Krieger from Yerushalayim. You remember Reb Pinchas? He wants to know, does the Balatanya mean that the Bnei Yisrael went into the Yamsuf and at some point turned around and went out the same side they went in?
Oh,
Yeah, it's a Toisvis. Toisvis, take a look. Toisvis, Masechta Erkin, I believe Daf Tesvav. That's where I think it is. Toisvis Erkin. Take out a Gemara Erkin. I think it's Daf Tesvav Amud Beis. Toisvis says this. I'm sorry, Tesvav Amud Aleph. Toisvis writes that the Jewish people, they did not go through the sea from one side to the other side. The same side that they went in, they made a semicircle and they went back up here. They go in like this, and they don't go through to the other side of the sea and come out. Rather, they make a turn and they come out the same way. They come out from the same side of the sea that they descended into the sea.
Rashi says it in Chumash, I think, right?
I don't think Rashi says it, but Tosfos says this in Gemara Erkin Daf Tesvav Amud Aleph. So the Balatanya proves from this that you have to say that Kriyas Yamsuf had some independent objective and purpose. Take a look. It's in Tosfos. I don't remember it in Rashi.
Where would it be? I think it's in Rashi.
Rashi says they came out from the same side that they came in.
Not positive, but I thought that, I didn't learn Arachin, but I thought I saw it in Chumash with Rashi. I don't know. I don't know where to look exactly. It'll take me a while.
Okay, don't worry.
Yeah, later today I'll take a look and see.
Take a look, yeah. Take a look.
Rabbi mentioned a very, very heavy Gavaltic story a few days ago that relates to self-centeredness. About the woman who had some children. They were very poor, and she only had a certain amount of bread, and she went into the room and ate the bread, and she was really realized that if she didn't live, they wouldn't live. So she was really being self-centered for them. It was a heavy, heavy story. I told it to a friend of mine who just right away it didn't feel good to him because his parents went through the war, and he said, "Oh no, a Jewish mommy is always someone who gives to the children and children and children." He couldn't understand. He had like a cognitive dissonance. He couldn't understand the part exactly. I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah.
Open up to it because it's a very deep word.
Yeah.
And then there's also a story of two men chopping wood in the forest, and they have a big pile of wood, and they're chopping wood, and they make money how much wood they chop. And they're chopping, and then the one guy takes a break. And then the one guy takes another break later, and another break. The one guy takes 5 breaks in the day. The other guy just keeps chopping, chopping, chopping. At the end of the day, the guy that took the breaks cut much more wood. That guy that didn't chop so much wood, whenever I asked him, what's going on? How did you chop so much wood? You took so many breaks. He said, I wasn't taking a break to relax. I was sharpening my saw. I was taking care of myself. I was improving. I was giving myself rest and feeding myself so that I would be able to produce for others.
Yeah.
Beautiful mushroom.
Yeah, beautiful. There's a sefer called Savas Harivosh, which has short lines, statements, ideas, insights of the Baal Shem Tov. So over there he says that because it says V'hachayis Ratzoi V'shoiv, the divine energy runs and returns. It ascends and descends. So therefore, he says, even the greatest tzaddikim who are in touch with that energy, they have these dual motions in life. Ratzoi, which is a yearning and longing and avodah, and then there's the shuv, returning. He says at the surface, it just looks like a form of relaxation that can maybe be perceived as idle, but really, it's the preparation for the next ratzoi. Like you're saying, I was sharpening the saw in order to be able to cut down more wood.
Rabbi, what's the Rosh Hashanah Mem Ches Dalet Vav Mem Machtub?
Machashava v'dibur. Machshava v'dibur. Mem Ches Vav Dalet is thought and speech. Hatzlacha Rabba. My love and blessings.
We'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, if you have time, you can also come on 3:30. Kamata.